In the dusty village of Umuofia, laughter echoed through the narrow paths as Adiz and Chinu ran barefoot across the open fields. From the day they met in primary school, they became inseparable. Adiz, with her bright smile and quick wit, often led their adventures, while Chinu, quieter and thoughtful, followed faithfully. "Catch me if you can," Ada shouted, sprinting toward the mango trees at the edge of the village. Chinu's breath came in short gasps, but she kept running, laughing. "One day, Ada, I'll beat you at this." Their friendship wasn't just about play, it was about understanding. Adiz shared her dreams of becoming a teacher, Chinu confided her desire to travel the world. They promised to always support each other, a vow that would carry them into adolescence. By the time they reached secondary school, the girls had faced bullies, difficult teachers, and the occasional heartbreak. Yet, through every challenge, they were each other's refuge. They spent evenings under the big Iroko tree, sharing secrets and dreams while their mothers prepared dinner in nearby huts. "You know," Chinu said one evening, twirling a strand of hair, "when we grow up, nothing will ever come between us." Adiz smiled, her eyes reflecting the dying sunlight. "Nothing. We're sisters, Chinu, and nothing will change that." Little did they know, life had begun planting seeds of envy, subtle and quiet, that would grow with the years. Their teenage years were filled with small adventures, sneaking into the marketplace to buy snacks, helping elders with chores, and participating in village festivals. Adiz's father, a respected trader, often watched them with amusement. "You two are trouble," he would say, shaking his head. "But I suppose trouble this harmless is all right." Chinu and Adiz loved the festivals most. They danced under the firelight, their laughter mingling with drums and chants, feeling that the world was theirs. But as the drums faded into the night, the first whispers of comparison began to enter Chinu's mind. Adiz seemed to shine effortlessly, drawing attention wherever she went. One rainy afternoon, a handsome young man named Obinna arrived in the village. He was kind, respectful, and worked in the city but often visited family in Umuofia. Adiz met him first at the market when she helped him carry a basket of yams. "Thank you, Ada," he said, smiling warmly. "I'm Obinna. It's a pleasure to meet you." From that moment, something stirred in her heart. Obinna began visiting often, helping with errands, and sharing stories of city life. Chinu watched their budding romance, supportive but secretly wondering why love seemed to pass her by. Years later, Adiz and Obinna were married in a ceremony that united not just two hearts but two families. Adiz moved into a larger home with Obinna, filled with laughter, warmth, and the promise of a happy life. True to her nature, Adiz shared her life online, pictures of their new home, the wedding, and early moments of marital bliss. "Life is beautiful," she captioned a photo of them holding hands beneath a flowering tree. Chinu watched the posts with a mix of happiness and an unfamiliar ache. She loved Adiz, yet something stirred deep inside, a tiny spark of envy, unnoticed at first, that would slowly grow into a fire. Chinu scrolled through her phone late one evening, her eyes fixed on Adiz's latest post. A photo of Ada in a sparkling gown at her husband's company dinner, Obinna's hand proudly around her waist. "Blessed to have such a wonderful man by my side," the caption read. Chinu's chest tightened. She looked around her own modest room. Her husband, Ifini, was already asleep on a worn-out mattress. Their marriage wasn't filled with romance or grand gestures, just routine and survival. She shut her phone with a sigh, whispering, "Why her? Why not me?" The envy was quiet at first, like a whisper in the dark. But it refused to leave. The next weekend, Ada invited Chinu over for lunch. The aroma of jollof rice and fried chicken filled the house. Obinna welcomed Chinu warmly, pulling out a chair for her. "You're always welcome here, Chinu," he said with his usual kindness. Chinu forced a smile. "Thank you, Obinna. You've built such a lovely home." Ada beamed with pride. "It's all God's grace. I just love sharing these moments with my friends." But as Chinu looked around at the neatly furnished home, envy stabbed her again. Her eyes lingered on Ada's wedding pictures framed on the wall, smiling faces, glowing love. Inside, Chinu's heart whispered, she doesn't deserve all this happiness. Chinu's jealousy began to leak into her words. One evening, as Ada confided in her about a small misunderstanding with Obinna, Chinu seized the moment. You know, Chinu said softly, sometimes men who seem too perfect have secrets. Maybe Obinna isn't as faithful as you think. Ada frowned, taken aback. Obinna? No, Chinu, he's not like that. He loves me. I'm not saying he doesn't, Chinu replied quickly, feigning concern. But don't be too blind, Ada. Men, they're all the same. The seed was planted. Ada shook her head, dismissing it, but the doubt lingered like a shadow. The more Ada posted her happy life online, the more restless Chinu became. At night, she lay awake imagining what it would feel like to be in Ada's shoes, living in that house, wearing those clothes, holding Obinna's hand. One evening, as she scrolled through Ada's page filled with glowing comments from friends and strangers, her jealousy hardened into resolve. She doesn't deserve this life, Chinu whispered to herself. I'll show her she isn't better than me. The plan was simple in her mind: create chaos between Ada and Obinna, step in as the comforter, and take Ada's place. Chinu began carefully. She visited Obinna under the guise of helping Ada with errands. Whenever Ada stepped out, she lingered just a little longer, offering Obinna a listening ear. You work so hard, she told him one day, her voice soft. Ada doesn't always see it, but I do. Obinna smiled politely, unaware of her intent. At the same time, Chinu whispered subtle lies to Ada. I saw Obinna talking with a woman at the market. Maybe it's nothing, but you should be careful. Ada's heart tightened. She loved her husband, but the doubts Chinu sowed began to cloud her trust. Chinu watched silently, satisfied. The cracks were forming. Ada sat in her living room, scrolling through her phone absent-mindedly. Obinna was unusually quiet that evening, his face buried in a newspaper. The silence felt heavy. Obinna, she finally said, who was that woman you were talking to at the market last week? Obinna looked up, surprised. Woman? Oh, you mean Mima Chika? She was asking about yam prices. Ada hesitated. Chinu said she saw you, it looked more than that. Obinna dropped the paper, his brow furrowed. Ada, are you listening to Chinu more than you trust me now? Her heart skipped. She didn't mean to sound accusing, but Chinu's words had taken root. For the first time in their marriage, mistrust seeped between them. Chinu, watching from the sidelines, smiled to herself. The cracks were widening. A week later, Obinna had a quarrel with Ada over finances. It wasn't serious, but Chinu turned it into an opportunity. She visited Obinna the next day, carrying a pot of soup. I know Ada can be difficult sometimes, she said sympathetically. But don't let it break you. Obinna sighed. Marriage isn't easy, Chinu. She doesn't understand how hard I'm working. Chinu touched his arm lightly. Some women don't know how blessed they are. If I had a man like you, I would never take him for granted. Obinna froze, sensing something in her tone, but the flattery soothed his wounded pride. For the first time, he began to see Chinu in a different light. It happened one rainy evening. Ada was away visiting her sick mother, and Chinu stopped by to check on Obinna. They talked for hours, sharing laughter and stories, the sound of rain masking the wrongness of the moment. As Chinu leaned closer, her voice soft, Obinna hesitated only briefly before giving in. One kiss became another, and soon, a line that should never have been crossed was shattered. Later, Obinna sat in silence, guilt gnawing at him. This was a mistake, he whispered. Chinu cupped his face, her eyes gleaming with triumph. No, Obinna. This is fate. Ada doesn't deserve you. I do. Ada returned home days later and sensed the distance immediately. Obinna avoided her gaze, came home late, and snapped at little things. One night, she found a text on his phone, I miss you already, from Chinu. Her heart dropped. Obinna, she confronted him, tears streaming. Tell me it's not true. Not with her. Not with Chinu. He looked away, shame and confusion on his face. Ada, maybe we aren't right for each other anymore. Within weeks, their once solid marriage unraveled. Papers were signed, and Ada found herself packing her belongings while her so-called best friend watched with thinly veiled satisfaction. The community buzzed with gossip. Ada withdrew from social media, her once bright spirit dimmed. Chinu, on the other hand, walked proudly on Obinna's arm, her victory complete, or so she thought. Chinu wasted no time. She married Obinna in a small but flashy ceremony. She wore a dress brighter than Ada's had been, determined to outshine her friend at every turn. At first, Obinna tried to convince himself he was happy. Chinu doted on him, cooked elaborate meals, and showered him with affection. But beneath her sweetness was control. Why are you still talking to your cousins so much? She snapped one evening. They don't respect me. Obinna, I don't like you visiting Ada's family. People will start gossiping. Gradually, the warmth drained from their home. Chinu wasn't the supportive friend she had pretended to be. She was demanding, jealous, and manipulative. Obinna began to wonder, what have I done? The first few months of marriage with Chinu were a blur of forced smiles and growing tension. At first, Obinna ignored the unease, convincing himself he had made the right choice. But slowly, Chinu's true nature surfaced. One evening, Obinna returned home late from work. Chinu was waiting at the door, arms crossed. Where have you been? She demanded. At the office, Obinna replied calmly. We had a late meeting. You expect me to believe that? Maybe you've found another woman already. Obinna stared at her, stunned. Chinu, is this what marriage is to you? Suspicion and accusations. That night, he couldn't sleep. His thoughts drifted to Ada, her patience, her laughter, her quiet faith in him. For the first time, regret began to gnaw at his heart. One afternoon, Obinna overheard Chinu on the phone with a friend. Her voice was low but sharp. If only Ada hadn't been so gullible. It was too easy making her doubt him. Now the fool is mine. Obinna froze. His chest tightened as the truth hit him like a blow. She had planned it all, the lies, the manipulation, the destruction of his marriage. That evening, he confronted her. You lied, Chinu. You poisoned my marriage. You destroyed the woman who trusted you most. Chinu's face hardened. So what if I did? I deserve this life more than Ada ever did. And now you're mine, Obinna. There's no going back. But Obinna looked at her with cold eyes. You don't own me. You've only shown me what a grave mistake I made. Obinna couldn't bear the weight of his guilt. He sought Ada out one Sunday after church. She was walking with her head down, avoiding stares. Ada, he called softly. She stopped, stiffening at the sound of his voice. Slowly, she turned. Her eyes were cold, her face thinner than he remembered. What do you want, Obinna? She asked. I was blind, he admitted, his voice trembling. Chinu deceived us both. She destroyed us. Ada, I made the worst mistake of my life. Please, forgive me. Ada's heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to cry, to tell him forgiveness was impossible. Yet beneath her anger was a deep ache, the ache of love betrayed. Forgiveness isn't for you, she said finally, her voice firm. It's for my own peace. But reconciliation? That's another matter entirely. News of Chinu's deception spread through the village like wildfire. People whispered in markets, shook their heads in disapproval, and turned cold shoulders when she passed. Ada confronted her one final time. They stood face to face in the courtyard where they once played as children. You were my sister, Chinu, Ada said, her voice breaking. I trusted you with my life. And you betrayed me, for what? A marriage you could never sustain? Chinu's eyes filled with tears, but pride held her back. I just wanted what you had. I was tired of being in your shadow. You never lived in my shadow, Ada replied. You created your own darkness. Within weeks, Obinna threw Chinu out. She returned to her father's house in shame, her reputation in ruins. The very life she had envied slipped through her fingers like sand. Obinna worked tirelessly to regain Ada's trust. It wasn't easy. There were nights Ada wept alone, memories of betrayal flooding her heart. But slowly, she saw his sincerity. One evening, Obinna knelt before her. I don't deserve another chance, but I'll spend the rest of my life proving I've changed. Ada looked into his eyes, saw the pain and regret, and felt a glimmer of the love they once shared. I forgive you, Obinna, she whispered at last. But this time, our marriage will be built on truth. Together, they began to rebuild, stronger, wiser, more cautious. Ada returned to social media, not to flaunt her life but to share messages of hope and healing. As for Chinu, she faded into the background, a cautionary tale of envy and betrayal. The bond of friendship she once had with Ada was gone forever, replaced by scars that time could never fully erase. But Ada learned the greatest lesson of all: not every friend is truly a friend. And sometimes, the ones closest to you hold the sharpest knives.